Welcome to the Full-Time FBA Show. In each episode, it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling almost anything on Amazon. And now, your hosts of the show, Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman.
Welcome to episode number 318 of the Full-Time FBA Show. Today, we're talking about step one of any roadmap. Where are you in your Amazon business? And to help us figure that out, my wife, Rebecca. What's up, Rebecca?
Where are you?
I'm right here. Where are you?
Good. I'm right here too. I'm ready to talk about learning where you are in your Amazon business so that you know where to go.
Exactly. Let's do that on today's episode of the Full-Time FBA Show.
We're so glad you're here with us today for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show, where it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA, and we help you achieve that through daily sales in the Momentum FBA membership. And today we're doing that by talking about step one of any roadmap, figuring out where you actually are in your business. Because if you don't know where you're starting from, any plan you make is basically wishful thinking. It's like opening up Google Maps when you get in your car and it says searching for GPS, and it's searching and searching, and you're just sitting there wondering, why is nothing moving?
I hate it when that happens. But knowing where you're starting from is really important and basically key to being able to make progress. If you don't even know where your starting point is, how can you expect to make it to your destination? You'll end up wasting a lot of time just wandering aimlessly and getting frustrated. So we're going to spend some time in today's episode helping you identify what stage of business you are really in and what that means for your focus right now and how to build from there.
And one reason this leads to frustration is that you end up chasing strategies that don't make sense for your current situation. If you don't know what stage your Amazon business is in, you don't know what to focus on in the big picture or on a daily basis. Those are both important.
Mm-hmm.
And you might end up seeing someone posting their 100K month, or they have screenshots where you think, I should just start ordering wholesale pallets, even though you're still just figuring out Keepa graphs. I mean, wholesale sourcing is great, and you want to get those huge sales months eventually and build up cash flow stability in your business, but it's not something you typically focus on in month 1 or 2 of your Amazon journey. So rather than chasing those strategies, you can save those social media posts for inspiration and just know that you need to stay focused on things that make sense for you in your current business stage.
So for the rest of this episode, we're going to talk about the 3 main stages of an Amazon business: build, grow, and scale. And don't worry, we will define those stages when we get into that and how you can assess where you are. But first, let's talk about the build stage. This is when you're learning the ropes. You're figuring out your tools. You're learning the Amazon guidelines. You're starting to understand Keepa, and you're making your first real purchases.
Your goal here is simple. It's consistency. You're just proving the concept at this point. You're learning to find inventory that sells reliably. And you're going to make some rookie mistakes at this point. We all did. My first month of selling on Amazon, I thought anything with a rank under 100,000 meant that you were going to get instant sales. But plot twist, it in fact did not mean that. So you'll want to focus on mastering the basics. You want to start sourcing with data, understand your numbers, and build habits that make you efficient.
The next stage is the grow stage. You've already established your foundation in the build stage, and now you are ready to optimize.
This is when you can consistently find and sell profitable inventory. This is where you stop guessing and start systemizing. You're creating sourcing routines, you've got cash flow rhythms in place, all those type of things.
Your challenge now in this stage is not, does this work? It's basically, how can I make this work better and faster? This is where many sellers hit a wall with becoming busy but broke. They have a lot of activity going on in their business, but they're not quite making the profits that they want. So you also need to focus on this stage on improving your ROI, your return on investment, both individual ASINs and on your business overall. You need to be very intentional about how you handle your cash flow, and you need to continually tighten your operations so that your profit margins grow along with your sales.
All right, next comes the scale phase. This is where you really start to take advantage of consistency, and you can see true expansion in what you're able to do in your business. At this point, you're not just sourcing and reacting to what's going on around you in the Amazon world, but you're building systems. By this point, you have definitely started hiring help, whether it's in the form of a prep center, a virtual assistant, or some other type of assistant who works with you in real life. And you might be looking into expanding into wholesale by this point.
One key to remember at this stage is that scaling isn't just, quote, do more. It's basically do more intentionally. You don't want to scale the chaos. You want to scale systems and processes that are already making you money, not costing you money. Now, let's get into assessing where you are right now. We've got 5 quick questions for you, kind of like a seller self-assessment quiz. So take a few notes here so you have something to think about and take away from this episode with the intention of making a plan on how to move forward at this point.
Okay, the first question is, how consistent are your sales? Look at your daily sales, your weekly sales, your sales across the month and from month to month. What kind of consistency are you getting in your sales? This will be a partial determining factor in what stage of business you're at. Like Stephen said, I would encourage you to take notes as you're listening to this episode. So pull out a piece of paper and pen or open up your notes app and just number 1 to 5 so you can jot down some takeaways on each of these points. Number 1, you're going to write down how consistent are your sales? Are they unpredictable from day to day or from week to week? Or are they steady as far as your revenue or your number of units sold? Now, I'm not talking about do you have a bad day here or there or a fantastic day here or there. That happens. It's to be expected. It's part of selling, especially with retail. There's going to be ups and downs at times.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be expected that every now and then you're going to have a day where all of a sudden you have 2 times the sales that you normally get for whatever reason. I mean, it could be a lot of different reasons. And then there's going to be an occasional day where it's just crickets. I really want to include a sound effect of crickets here, but I'm not going to. A day of like no sales, and who knows why.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about with consistent sales is those type of days. I mean, do you generally have sales that are consistent from day to day and week to week, or are they all over the place with their predictability? If so, that's a sign you're in the build stage.
Yeah, and on the other hand, if your sales are steady and predictable, you need to take a closer look to see if you're in the grow stage or the scale stage. If you've already got sales, but your margins could use some work, that's the grow stage. You know you're getting good revenue, good sales numbers, but you don't have great profit margins. You're not walking away at the end of the month with good profits, your sales versus your expenses. I mean, that's a sign that you are still in the growth stage and you need to do some work to tighten up and optimize things to make more profits. But if you have those steady, solid, consistent sales and you're seeing the arrow move upward in your overall profits and ROI, then you're in the scale stage.
Okay, so the next question to ask yourself is building off what Stephen was just saying about your profits compared to your sales. And that is, do you know your actual profit margin and inventory turn rate?
And if your answer is, I have no idea, don't worry. That's okay. We're glad you're here. You are in the build phase if you have no idea about that. And it's okay not to know that right now, but it is not okay to stay at that spot.
If you don't know that answer, we can teach you how to find it out. But you must start learning those numbers about your business because you cannot grow what you do not know. Now, if the answer is, I sort of know it, I check in from time to time, but honestly, it's scary, so often I ignore it. Well, you're in a place where you need to grow. You need to make it a regular practice to learn those numbers, pay attention to them and find ways to optimize what you're doing that is working so that those numbers can grow on a regular basis. And then you're going to get to a place where you'll be excited to check them regularly because of that growth. And that's when you know you're at the scale phase. If you are checking in on your turn rate, your profit margins, your ROI, you do that on the reg and you're continually fine-tuning what works and you're getting rid of what doesn't work. That means you're scaling.
So the third question to ask yourself to assess your business stage is, how systematized are your sourcing and prep processes? What does your daily process look like? Do you even have a system?
And again, if the answer is nope, don't have systems, I just go with the flow and I do what I feel like doing in my business each day. Well, that's good to know. You're in the build phase and knowing is half the battle, right?
G.I. Joe.
Right. Once you've identified that you're in that place of chaos and haphazardness, it gives you action steps for how to move from build to grow. And that's clarity, knowing what steps to take. That's so important in your business. If you don't have systems, that's great. Let's start building systems.
So when it comes to your sourcing and prepping systems, there's one key difference between the grow phase and the scale phase. Back when you were in the build phase, you didn't have any systems, but in grow, you have those systems and processes in place. You're streamlined. You have things put together like a well-oiled machine, but you're doing it all yourself. You're very hands-on, and in a lot of ways, you are micromanaging. Some people honestly never move out of this phase because they just enjoy doing it all themselves, and it's totally possible to grow an Amazon business that way and even grow it to a full-time income.
But if you want to truly scale it and build a measure of freedom, you'll need to outsource. And that's the difference between growing and scaling when it comes to your systems. You cannot really scale an Amazon business to a point of freedom in your schedule or your time if you're not outsourcing. If you aren't putting many, if not most, of your processes in place to run without you. Or if your business can carry on for 2 weeks while you're on vacation, then you've set it up to truly be able to scale and grow to a point of financial and lifestyle freedom.
All right, next question. Question number 4. What is your relationship with cash flow? Do you even have cash flow?
Right. Like, what's cash? I haven't seen that in a while. When I do see it, I spend it immediately. So if that's your answer, you're in the build phase. You need to focus on building some cash flow. This is actually the focus for our current skill sprint inside the Momentum FBA membership. And we'll give some more details at the end of this episode about that, so stick around. But we're working on helping you build up some cash flow, and we're dedicating the next 7 days to intently learning just how to do that.
But if your answer to that question about cash flow is that you are in the position of learning to budget, learning how to wisely invest your money, figuring out how to pay yourself out of your business, then you're in the growth stage. You're putting in place those strategies that will help set you up for success on Amazon, and you're starting to see the fruit of those efforts. And then in the scale stage, you have a solid strategy for generating regular, consistent cash flow, and you're maximizing how to use it to build solid, sustainable profits in your business.
And that brings us to the final question. So let's recap the first 4. How consistent are your sales? Do you know your actual profit margin or inventory turn rate? How systemized are your sourcing and prep processes? And what's your relationship with your cash flow? Then the 5th question to ask yourself about your business is, how do you approach learning? Now, your initial thought may be, if I'm still learning, I must be in the build phase. But that's not what we mean by this question.
Yeah, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, the question's never about, are you still learning? Because you will always be learning. I mean, we've been selling on Amazon for 15 plus years and we're still learning. The question is about how you are learning and what you are learning.
Yeah, we've said for years, learners are earners and readers are leaders. And we truly emphasize learning as a massive part of our strategy in our business at Full-Time FBA.
So the real question is, how are you going about learning what you need to know in your Amazon business? Are you randomly consuming videos that just pop up on TikTok or Instagram Reels? If so, you're letting the algorithm tell you what's popular. You're not being strategic in what you learn. Or are you going to YouTube and find everything that's free, just whatever information you can find? I mean, it's not a bad thing to do necessarily, but is the information that you're looking at current? Is that information coming from someone who can be trusted? I mean, are they giving you information that will help you succeed or that will get you in trouble with Amazon for breaking their guidelines?
If that's how you learn new things for your Amazon business, no shade. I mean, we're putting out this free podcast as a way to help people learn. So clearly, we want people to use all of the avenues available to them to learn how to grow business. But the difference between being in a build stage versus a grow or scale stage is that you move from randomly consuming info to strategically choosing what to focus on learning so that you can target areas of growth in your business. If you want to be in that grow or scale stage, you need to have learning goals, and you need to be intentional about where you get your information rather than just letting viral videos be pushed to you on social media.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, this assessment is not meant to be any type of judgment on where you are currently. I mean, it's an assessment. And the purpose of an assessment is, well, to assess so that you can use that as a starting point to move forward toward the goal of growing and scaling your Amazon business.
Yeah, there's no judgment on your current location for sure. But we do want you to know that If you're refusing to see where you are or you're refusing to take steps to move forward, that's your choice, but it can make or break your business.
So take a look at your notes from those 5 questions. And if you didn't take us seriously the first time, go back and listen to this episode again and take notes this time.
Yeah, I've totally done that with podcasts before, so I highly recommend you do it now. If you need to, we will never know that you did that. And it's the best thing to do if you go back and listen to it the second time.
Yeah. And guess what? Once you've answered those questions, you will have a good idea of what stage you're at, and you can make the choices on how to best strengthen your weaker areas and use those answers to determine what action steps you need to take next.
That's exactly what we help members inside Momentum FBA do in their business. It's not just a membership where we give you a bunch of information. We want to help you find your personal strategy for how to grow your business to a point of daily sales on Amazon so that you can reach your financial and lifestyle dreams. And like I mentioned earlier, we're kicking off Cash Flow Jumpstart Week right now in Momentum FBA. In fact, the entire month of November is focused on budgeting and finding your budget breakthrough for your Amazon business. You can join us inside Momentum FBA for just $59 and start working with Stephen and I to move your business to the next phase. And you can join us at fulltimefba.com/momentum. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. As a reminder, any of the links we mentioned in this episode, along with the show notes, can be found at fulltimefba.com/318 because this is episode number 318.
And next week on the Full-Time FBA Show, we're going to be talking about leverage points to multiply your Amazon profits going into 2026. So join us next week on the Full-Time FBA Show.
That's all for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. So head over to fulltimefba.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and links from this episode. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter where you'll get several free downloads of our popular and helpful Amazon FBA resources. Now, take action on what you've learned today so you can find success at turning part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA.